Thanks for joining us today, Adam, on our latest State Spotlight piece. We really appreciate you taking the time. And one of the reasons we wanted to get you on is because more and more we're hearing about Tennessee coming up, and so many companies are now wanting to relocate to Tennessee and set up businesses in Tennessee. And obviously, you're the man to go to when it comes to all things Tennessee. So I just thought it'd be great to kind of start off today by introducing yourself, and if you can let us know a little bit about what you do as well.
Sure, yeah, great to be here, Will. Thanks for inviting me on. So my name's Adam Breeze. I'm responsible for the UK and Irish markets for the state of Tennessee. So I basically work as part of the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, TNECD. We work on behalf of the governor of Tennessee. And our key remit is to find interesting and expanding companies and individuals to attract into the state, with the view of obviously adding value and growing the economy there. To do that, we have always had quite an active international department. So we've always had offices in Japan, Korea, Germany, and Italy. And then I'm the most recent new kid on the block. So 2 years ago, just before COVID hit, I opened up the UK operation. So I'm based up here in the Northwest in sunny Manchester. So my accent is more Northwest England than Southeast United States. Yeah. But my remit, as I say, is to help promote the business benefits of the state. So yeah, it's going really well at the moment.
Fantastic. Yeah, I did notice you don't have the Tennessee twang, but yeah, I thought I don't have an American accent either, as I'm sure you can tell from the Scouse accent coming out. So as we mentioned before, Tennessee is really, really kind of, you mentioned before we started recording as well, it's not necessarily up and coming anymore. It's almost, established as one of the states to kind of emerge in. I think the UK market is slowly starting to kind of realise that as well. So what are some of the reasons or the trends that have kind of come up in the last few years that are making Tennessee such an attractive state for businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's as with any successful location, it's a rich mix of advantages. I think the sort of top two or three. I mean, number one, if you look on a map and see where we are, we're sort of a little bit southeast. We're on the verge of the northeast. We're on the verge of the Midwest. So we're no state has more borders with other states than Tennessee.
Great fact.
So we're surrounded by lots of other interesting places as well. So if you're looking to serve, the US market, it's pretty much the optimum place to be, which is, I think it puts us within 11-hour drive time of 60% of the US population, which it's therefore no surprise that FedEx have their headquarters in Memphis. And Memphis Airport is now the #1 cargo airport in the whole world. So the reason for that is because of the rich logistics strengths that we have. So not only air, but also with a sort of confluence of loads of major interstates, the railroad network and the waterways as well. So in terms of location, it's a fantastic place. Aside from that, we've been avowedly a pro-business state for a long time. That means low tax and in personal terms, no taxation. We'll talk about that in a bit. And one of the things that shines through, it tends to be the quality of life, which a lot of people talk about, and sure, everywhere's got some great qualities, but I think you struggle to find such an amazing combination of cities such as Nashville and Memphis, surrounded by such fantastic countryside and rich landscape like the Smoky Mountains. So I think that as soon as people visit the place, and they do so in their numbers, sort of 120 million a year visit the state, then most people fall in love with it straight away. And what we found, particularly during lockdown, was that there was absolutely a huge increase in people moving into Tennessee. People looking for a different pace of life, perhaps away from East Coast, West Coast, but with cities that they could still be very active in. So in terms of attracting in people and companies, it's been a very busy couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So it's almost a bit like Denver in that sense that you've kind of got lots of different things on your doorstep, and like you mentioned there, you've got such a great interconnectivity of all different places to visit when you're there. And I've never heard of anyone come back from Nashville and not have the best time ever. So
Absolutely.
I can certainly see why it's really attractive to from a quality of life point of view. Do you think that's reflected in the talent pool? What's the talent pool like currently in Tennessee?
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting. I mean, I mean, the population of the whole state is about 7 million. So, similar-ish to sort of Scotland. It really is a very, very sort of strong work ethic place. Especially as you go out into rural Tennessee, and that's been a major magnet for sort of manufacturers from all over the world. What we're seeing now is a lot more mobile millennials moving into those key cities as well. Not only Nashville and Memphis, but also places like Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Clarksville, which are a little bit smaller, but a fantastic mix of technology and major universities as well. The other thing around the talent pool is that we were one of the first states in America to offer free college tuition after high school. So 16 to 18 pre-university is free in Tennessee to every single Tennessean. That's a really powerful advantage when we're talking to companies about moving there. It's a place where people are certainly moving to and finding decent talent there.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you can really see that, can't you? Like you can see why all these companies like FedEx and people are relocating there because you've got great schools and like you mentioned, and we mentioned earlier as well. There's also zero state income tax there for people as well, isn't there? So that's a massive obviously pull to a lot of candidates, especially as we've seen recently people kind of fleeing the traditional tech
Yep.
hubs of New York and DC and San Francisco and California in general and going to more Texas and Florida where they have that 0% state income tax. Tennessee is another, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly from the UK and Europe, there's always been a tendency, obviously, to go to the sort of northeast states and aim for New York first, and otherwise then fly across to the other side, to the west coast. We always just encourage people to do their maths, do their homework, and actually compare, because there are 50 different tax systems, and even within a state, a lot depends on where you're going to locate, as you know, and lots of different types of tax. We do have a few small taxation around property and sales, but in terms of salaries, compared to, say, California or New York, if you can, increasingly this is important, because if you can keep the same job and operate in a more hybrid or remote way, you're basically giving yourself, what, 15-20% pay increase. So what's not to like about that?
Yeah, and then like you mentioned before, with all those mobile millennials recently relocating over COVID, and the fact that you've got that amazing quality of life, if you can then get your 15%, 20% income boost without actually changing
Yep.
jobs, and you can do it remotely, then
Yep.
it's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and what we're finding is, the millennials might have moved in, but then a lot of the tech companies are starting to follow them in as well. So they see the huge growth rates, and Nashville is like doubled in size in a very, very short space of time. Across the state, we're growing at double the national average in terms of people moving in. So major companies that are looking for a workforce in the future are going, well, this is the place to be, because not only because they're already there, but also this is a place where we can attract people into from anywhere in the world. So we've had 2 or 3 absolutely massive tech companies that have chosen Tennessee in the last 12 months that are totally changing the shape of the recruitment market there.
Fantastic. And so it'd be really interesting to hear what are some of the key industries and the key players that are relocating or focusing on Tennessee. So what is it that kind of Tennessee is becoming famous for? Because a lot of people that be watching will just think Tennessee, they'll think whiskey and they'll think country music.
Absolutely, yeah, and undoubtedly fantastic for country music and whiskey and all sorts of music, but neither rank anywhere near the top in terms of the main industries in the state. easily number one for most parts of the state is actually the healthcare industry, which comes as a surprise to a lot of people. What we've got in Middle Tennessee, or around sort of Greater Nashville area, are about 14 national headquarters for some of the biggest healthcare operators. So in terms of the companies that actually run hospitals across the states, the biggest being HCA, who are quite familiar to people in the UK as well, because they own things like Christie's and Harley Street Hospital and so on. HCA have always been based in Nashville. It's a Nashville company, and on the back of their growth, lots and lots of startups have spread from that. If you're looking to actually, get into the procurement divisions of a lot of US healthcare, then Nashville's the place to be. Just down the road in Memphis, we've got a major medical devices cluster, one of the biggest in the world. So we've done a lot of work with some of the British companies there. So people like Smith and Nephew, they have their biggest global facility in Memphis. So aside from healthcare, the other big thing for us is around sort of automotive and mobility. So we attracted in Nissan quite early on, and that was the first big automotive car plant that came into the state. Over the years, that's attracted more and more people in. What we started to do is see major investment around electric vehicles, like everyone else. So now Tennessee is the #1 place in the Southeast for manufacturing of EVs. We've got 4 major plants there now: Volkswagen, GM, Ford, and as I said, Nissan. So all making future electric vehicle models. And so 3 of those have all announced like $1 billion plus investments during COVID. So just the roof's gone off in terms of automotive stuff. And then if we look more on the technology side, certainly in the major cities, about 2 years ago, Amazon chose Nashville for one of its key corporate headquarters. So this isn't a logistics site. We've got lots of them, as everybody does. But there's 5,500 tech jobs that are being created in downtown Nashville. And then shortly after that, Oracle announced that they were going to replicate their Austin headquarters and actually have another HQ in Nashville. So their plan is to recruit 8,500 tech workers over the next 10 years. So what we're starting to see is not only the manufacturing renaissance, or a lot of the advanced industries, but also in the new technology and services as well. Also, one of the big financial services companies from New York, Alliance and Bernstein, they relocated their HQ, lock, stock and barrel, from Manhattan to Nashville, actually right in the center of all the honky tonks and music bars. So again, that's changing the dynamic. So we lots of interest from sort of fintechs on the back of that as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it's so interesting to hear, just like you mentioned, in such a short space of time. So even just since COVID, such a change that's happening in the state, and some amazing kind of opportunities there for businesses, either directly related to those companies and those industries that you mentioned, but also all of the kind of collateral that comes with that. So the additional kind of workforce that's going to be coming with that. And then if you're in the recruitment industry, you might not be directly an engineer yourself, but that might come into it as well. So really appreciate your kind of time doing that. So I'll just wrap up with one final question for you, Adam. If you had to convince a business owner today, they're weighing up a few different states, and Tennessee is one of the states, what would you say to them is the reason why they should go to Tennessee?
Well, I think that I said it earlier. It's literally just do your homework. I'm not here to do a sales message, because the numbers do stack up. So look at a map, do your homework, look at tax rates, speak to other people that have done it, and hopefully you'll reach the same conclusions. And the #1 thing is, if you can, just go out there and have a little look before choosing any location. It's worth jumping on a plane. You can do that easily now. A direct flight from Heathrow to Nashville, British Airways. There's lots of connecting flights as well. So yeah, I mean, just get over it. And I'm sure whether it's Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, the minute you touch down and feel that traditional Southern warmth and hospitality, you'll not want to leave.
Oh, fantastic. Well, really appreciate your time today, Adam. Do you
No
just want to
problem
let
at all.
people know where they can find you? So obviously you've done a great job pitching Tennessee. I think I want to relocate to Tennessee now. So if somebody did want to do that, where
Sure.
can they find you at?
Yeah, all of my details are on our main website, which is tnecd.com. And just go down to the UK page or the staff contact page. You'll find me through there. So yeah, that's really good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and it was great to speak to you.
All right, thanks, Will. Cheers.
Thanks, Adam.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye bye.